Go for what?
Let's go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Lorelines. Fowlin Hawk speaking. I wasn't around to host last week, so Meowth covered with us along with Neela and Cobran, and it was great. If you haven't seen it, go check it out on our YouTube or Twitch. This week, we have a pretty full cast. Not totally full, but we're close. And we are discussing episode 49, The Final Frontier. So we've got Labyrinthos Part 2. We've got the Itioscope, and ideally we start knocking our way through Ultima Thule. So welcome one and all to episode 49, and I will open comms. Hello everybody, how was everyone this week?
You can thank me for the pun on the post today.
Yeah, Sayumi gets full credit.
There was a pun?
There is a pun.
The Final Frontier. I appeal to everyone Star Trek.
That's not a pun. That's just a fact.
Yeah, that's just a fact. Hello, Meow.
Oh, you all can
Meowth is
crucify me because I am not a Star Trek fan, so...
Oh my god.
Wow.
Wow.
How am I
Poser.
on a podcast with you?
What a
You're
poser.
a horrible person.
Right?
I'm awaiting
You
my
literally
judgment.
posed.
Here it comes.
I'm a bit confused.
Yes.
That's okay. I'm not a Star Wars fan, so there you go.
Space,
No, I
the
meant-
Final Frontier.
Is this... We are...
Yes, we're live.
Oh.
DST shenanigans, isn't it great?
Daylight savings time.
You can thank us
Back in the
Midwesterners.
days of paradise, we had no such notion of daylight savings.
I was going to say, you can thank us Midwesterners for that, so...
Ugh.
Farmers. No live.
And
Only
I
suffering.
was thinking, okay, so maybe it's 2 hours for me until we go live, and turns out no.
It's now.
No.
Absolutely not.
We told you 9 p.m.
What?
Yeah, it's you told me 9 p.m. It's 7 p.m. my time.
We lied.
Yes, Isomo Art. Neela is not officially gone. We've been asked to prod, and we are prodding. So, there we go.
Rogue on
experience.
YouTube, do you have any spiked ones? Preferably ones you can drill into me?
Wait, you want us to drill you?
Now I'm really wishing Neela was here.
I want to say thank you to Rogue for commenting on all our videos on YouTube. Thank you very much.
Cobran's watching.
No, I'm not.
All right. Well, how should we begin this week? I wasn't here. I mean, I did tune in for comments, and I hopped in very briefly. But my understanding is we crushed Elpis into the ground, so we should be ready to move on.
Yeah, we
and-
did.
Yeah, I mean,
So
we
then
touched...
we went back to the
touched-
shitty future.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mm,
We touch upon many things, but I think we actually discuss. We got to discuss the talk with spoiling the poor ancients on the entire plot.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
we
yeah, yeah.
didn't even use our magic crystal to do it.
They didn't even get to play the game. We just told them everything that happened.
It is curious that showing the magic rock would have really, like, no explanation needed.
Yeah,
You know,
but at
like,
the same
here's the rock.
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, at the if it's your first. Sorry. Usually, I am a bit warmed up before before going
You're
live.
fine.
I was going to say, if this were your first playthrough, you're like, hey, why don't I? If Hades doesn't believe me, I just could pull the Ascent crystal and show him. But then it's only later that he reveals that he wouldn't have no need, because as a convocation member he can spot if you're lying or not. So he precisely stormed off because he knew that you were telling the truth, and he just couldn't
He was mad, bro.
deal with it.
I'd rather not get into that form of time travel.
Mhm.
It automatically irks me that we had to tell everything to them.
Yeah.
Sarah, did you have something to say?
Only that entire sequence was gut wrenching for me because I wanted to chase after him to reassure him that I do in fact feel bad about what kind of a megalomaniacal madman he does become, but I still love him.
Yeah, there was a lot of that for
Same.
me. Not quite so strong a feeling,
Thankfully, Vana was reassuring though. She was like, "Yeah, he'll be back. Don't worry."
but
And then he was.
Mm.
And then the end of Katesis destroyed me utterly, and I was like, "Oh God."
We'll get to that. We will get to that.
I mean, technically, we're getting past that.
yeah.
We're
Yeah.
gonna
Yeah.
come back to it because that has to do with a certain area that we'll get to.
Well, yeah.
So let's let's flash forward because it's daylight savings and because spring forward, fall back, you know that thing. We're gonna
Also-
go to
And also, it's fitting because right now the background is Napriales, so.
anyways. Going to Charlene part 2. So we come back and we're like, well, we've got to build. They have a spaceship.
Sorry, first we go to Charlie and back, and then we have to go to Garlemald to deal with the final days.
That's
And then we go
yes.
back to, and then we got Urianger freezing and bringing the Loporids to Etheris.
Why did they come that way, by the way? Like, I know there's a... I know. Teleport power, got it. Why?
You probably need to up your volume a little bit, Foul, by the way.
Okay,
Living
thank you.
Living Way says that the reason we're down here is because you're not up there, basically. So
Yeah, and he didn't bring the clothes, though. They have creation magic, but he's all...
mm-hmm.
Look at my
You were-
shoulders.
You went and got smokes, but you didn't come back.
Yeah, and then Pudding Way launches a full-scale invasion of Etheris. Insert.
Yes.
Best
And
bunny.
then that's when we go to Charlian, and then we speak with the forum. They reveal that they've been planning along the Loporids to create the big dam arc to the moon, and that's when the twins decide to, hey, if you're going to use this thing for evacuating Etheris, how about we use this thing to reach Meteon? And that's the start of Labyrinthos Part 2.
And a 30-second loop of music that everyone turned off.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
actually did turn it off.
I actually didn't, but perhaps that stressed me out even more. And I was like,
I also did not turn it off, and not only did I not turn it off, I actively listened to it from the soundtrack. Now that it's all available on YouTube, thank you.
You're powerful.
I mean, it's a good track, but not when you're listening to it for hours.
It was
and
the wrong
hours.
tempo for that
Like
kind of
Yeah.
zone.
it just
You-
felt like you were going through Labyrinthos just to connect point A to point B in the story, not so much because you wanted to be there.
Imagine Twine in Shadowbringers if it had like a really high tempo soundtrack. It'd be like, boom, 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 find me a wrench, boom, boom, boom.
Truthfully, because Twine didn't have a hype soundtrack, I enjoyed it more. It was more ambient and vibey, and I really
Fair.
liked it. I just
No, I
liked it.
agree.
So
There
Fair.
was just something about that whole sequence that reminded me of like just prior to Mount Gold when you're with like the Exarch and you're running around in
yes.
Upper
Yeah, that's
Calusia
right.
and they're doing that same thing of playing music at a high tempo
that seemed sensible to me.
constantly, and it
But the difference is
quite
that
work.
Mount Gold was hype. This was not.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of a yeah, exactly.
Maybe the JP localization was more hypey.
Uh,
know.
Maybe.
It's largely forgettable, I thought.
I
There
think
were
the
some very
most
good scenes, a
important-
few of them, but
think
mostly
the
blah.
most I don't really recall Labyrinthos that much because I was like I was stuck in that damn quest of finding the researchers for too long, and I was like,
Everyone was. That was the worst quest.
but in the end, I think the most important scene during that segment, aside from gathering every ally, and then getting the adamantite cores, but
I
for
really
me,
enjoyed that.
yes, but for me, I think the one that destroyed me during that section, that was Urianger and Moonbreeder's parent.
Oh, that was definitely by far the most memorable part. Was finally getting closure on that and seeing them interacting.
I was surprised there
Yes.
wasn't more grief. I know it's been a minute, but still, for them to be so charitable was kind of surprising. In a good way, but still.
They've probably had time to mourn and everything, and they understood that he did too.
Yeah.
And ultimately, like, that was what was most important, was just being able to, like, she would have been happy and proud to see you get to this point and work towards, like, the same goal that she gave her life for.
I think they should adopt him, even though the
I think
relationship would have
Thancred
been
has
different.
already adopted him.
Looking
So
over chat
about
here.
that, I'm about the Moonbreeda part. I didn't think they were gonna pull from that far back. I knew that they were going to at least touch on it, but like they even went into kind of like the backstory of what it was like when they were young.
Yeah, like truly young
and
kids, like as kids,
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
properly
and
kids.
and then they also kind of they showed how Moonbreeda's mother kind of and father really like understood Urianger as well, knew him as Moonbreeda's best friend and closest confidant. So it was very heartwarming. It was very sweet.
I think if you'll allow me, I'm going to. Well, I've
Go off on
already
a rant.
mentioned. Huh? No, no. It's something that I've already I already said in previous episodes of the Sandwalker recap, so to speak. But aside from that part, that I believe is, I don't know what's the. Neela calls it meta narrative, which is telling the story of someone else by through another character's arc or course of events. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but by itself, I think this is a really good not conclusion, because I think Urianger's arc conclusion is in Ultima Thule when he does a thing, but this was a really great step onwards in his character arc when he finally makes amends with something that's been eating at him ever since Arian Reborn. And whether you like the science or not, whether I think it's great. I think it's great storytelling in terms of and character writing for Urianger. That moment, perhaps that's why it hits so hard.
I wanted to say that Final Fantasy XIV has a history of like meta narrative and exploring side characters in a way that other games just don't. This cutscene is like a touchstone moment where they really do it like to the T. This might be the best side character characterization, I guess, that is in the game. I don't know of another one that kind of competes. That doesn't mean everyone was impacted emotionally the same way, but in terms of like really just driving home and finalizing the point of that arc, I don't think I've seen that anywhere else. Have you guys?
I have, but that's Final Fantasy 13 for you.
I mean, anywhere else in
Yeah.
14.
In 14, I would say, I would say, Emetzelk and Urianger are rather not in the same level, but close enough. Of course, from different, they're different characters, but they're different types of characters. But for in terms of, let's say, main characters, I think no one comes close to Urianger. Maybe Alfino in Heaven's Ward, because his Heaven's Ward arc is really great, but from after Heaven's Ward, the twins and Alfino stay more or less the same until Garlemald in Endwalker. Correct me if you believe otherwise.
I don't know. I think that the twins' divergence of like personality starts a little bit like around Heaven's Ward and then just keeps progressing over time, especially starting in Stormblood when we see more of Alize.
Yeah, we saw very little of Alice early, didn't we? They kind
Yeah,
of
I
split,
think
not-
and
that
then that was it.
She was
Celebrates.
even in like ARR. You could tell she was like a little bit more like on the fiery side. That's why they diverged, and she was in Coils, and that was like her role initially, and then she went off to do her own thing for a while.
She has a very low tolerance for BS, especially political BS, and they immediately diverge. But we don't get much from her aside from Coil until Warriors of Darkness arc.
If anything, Endwalker is more of like the capstone of that. When you see Amelians giving them like separate outfits and like telling them, "Yeah, you're not. I'm not dressing you up the same anymore because you're not the same anymore, really. If you ever were."
Well, that was part of
And
this
that's a good
quest
thing.
series too, right? Right when we first go back to Charlie.
Yeah,
after
yeah.
that.
We get to see Fortunal and Amelians like interacting with them and having that like, yeah, this is why I did what I did moment. God, that was emotional too.
I enjoyed
Yeah.
that Ameliance and Fortuno actually. It's not like a surface level thing. You can definitely tell they're a married couple with history. I like that. It's like
No
a
expert
separate
in the
thing,
matter, but that they definitely give off the vibe when Amelian's outs Fortunal from being a worrywart, and he's like, Amelians.
right? They're actually a couple. Meanwhile, how about those artifact weapons that Alfie takes into the final zone, being his dad's?
Yeah.
I didn't know they were strong enough. What's he packing? We get gear upgrades every 3 levels. What's up with that?
So
Listen,
yeah.
those Charlanes, they have a lot of secrets.
Yes.
And he's got big coffers.
What'd you say?
He's got big coffers. I mean, he lives in a mansion.
Now I need to find an excuse to refer to someone's bits as coffers.
I knew that was going to happen. I may have been doing that deliberately for your
I mean, we still have to go over the whole process of, well, every time they induct a member into the forum, they go through a process of memory reconfiguration.
Shall we say?
But that's another subject.
So we basically I think that covers Labyrinthos Part 2 more or less. Do we go into the ATS scope?
Well, I wanted to touch on the actual scene, right? So we go to the hangar. Also, can I just say that I liked seeing a Lalafell who actually kind of behaved like a dwarf, like a proper. He's got that affect.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Obsessed with explosions and drinking.
Yeah,
Which
man.
Lalafell should be on the first.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That was a Lalafell in the style of the first, and I really appreciated that because to me, that's what's going to make Lalafells great again.
Agreed. Can we have
They
next
knew
expansion? We have
that
a different like
people-
city state where they're
He's
cool.
he's a shard of Giot. I'm calling that.
Oh my god.
I don't know if we could handle more Gihad, honestly, but yes.
Yes, we absolutely can. We
Hell
can
yes.
handle an entire civilization of Giots, and they will move into a city called Nomergon
Yeah.
and dig too deep and go too far.
Oh
You
god.
can stop right there.
No, please continue.
Southern Isles. Thank you.
The Southern Isles. Oh my god.
The Lalafell expansion. There you go. They're the lost people.
Southern Isles could
that's-
also be an
I'm
innuendo.
going
This
to make
is great.
Oh yeah.
make an European joke. Southern Isles is going to be Ireland. Ireland expansion because potatoes.
Oh God!
Oh, no.
So, please give me that.
Way to annoy every Irish person in chat.
What? All 5 of them?
Traditional
sorry.
Lalafell food.
I'm sorry, Irish people. I do love you.
I mean, they did have a potato thing.
They
Potato.
do. I spent 3 weeks in Dublin for an English course. They do love potatoes.
I do too.
I mean,
like, who
potatoes are
doesn't?
delicious, but they're also what's considered an inferior good. So, like, the more income you have, the less potatoes you eat, which is weird because Dublin's the most expensive city in the world.
Interesting.
Listen, if you're going to ever eat a stew, there's nothing that tops Irish potato stew. That's
no
all
doubt.
I'm going to
No
Say that
doubt.
again. Say that again. Irish potatoes.
Irish.
All right, so that.
Welcome to the Potato Podcast.
I'm
Now
about
I
to
should
turn all
what
y'all
a
now-
into mashed
potato is.
now
potatoes.
I should
Stop.
draw everyone as a lalafel. No, actually I shouldn't.
Oh dear.
No, you
Please
really
no.
should not.
If anybody wants cheesy garlic mashed potatoes, I will make them from scratch. Come on over.
I'm on my
How
way.
did we come to this?
I
How
don't
did it come to
know.
this?
There is so little to talk about in Labyrinthos Part 2 at this point that we've literally
if-
segued to
now-
potato.
I was going to
That's
say
what I
the
mean.
sundering was a mistake, but that works too.
Well, we would probably get to that when we get to the 80th scope, but still, I do think it speaks to Labyrinthos in overall sense, like being largely transitory.
We went from Charlene to
second
mashed
part-
potatoes.
Like the second part really just does not leave much of an impression besides Tokal, the engineer Lalafell, and the stuff with Urianger and Bree's parents.
You know what left an impression on me? Talk to 8 scientists, but there's 15 on the fucking map.
Oh
And
god.
an hour and a half later, I could progress in the story.
I did have trouble finding them. I really did.
They are a bit spread out.
The one that sticks in my mind was the one you talked to, and it's like, this person's doing better than you. Feel bad about yourself.
this person is beyond your help. Only sleep can help her now.
Yeah, literally, like, explosive engineer Lalafell and Moonbreeda's parents were the only memorable things. Like, there was something about the initializing the cores, one which corresponded to each element, and you go all the way around, and I'm like, that's awesome. I don't care though.
More
so
busy
let me get
work.
on the
Can someone else
spaceship.
do it?
Yeah.
Trying to save the universe, assholes.
Right?
God.
Yeah. So yeah, and then that's that leads into the ATS scope. Then
Yeah, but I will say one last thing about Labyrinthos Part 2 is that I felt like it definitely showed that Ishikawa has a specific cadence that she sticks to for her story construction, because it was very reminiscent of Twine in Shadowbringers, where you have the lull right before everything goes crazy.
the difference is that Twine is the breather episode before Colusia Round 2, which is hectic, and this was right before the final trial and Ultima Thule, which is the second trial, Ultima Thule, which is a breather that you don't actually want to breathe.
Yeah, exactly. Because you can't breathe in Ultima Thule, so they needed to give you time to breathe. It's called pacing, where they actually bring you down from your high so that they can bring you back up again. Because if you're constantly in high gear, it's not going to have the same impact. But if they stop, say, okay, take a break, we're going to play really exciting music, but it's going to be a really slow part of the game.
Then why didn't they use slow music, man?
It's going to take you out of it so we can get you back in even worse.
So when we walk into the hangar, who is expecting that shape of spaceship?
I remember one of my partners was saying they were expecting to see the Ragnarok from 4 or wherever the Ragnarok is originally from.
8.
Or 8, yeah. And that they still thought it was a cool design, but they had been expecting a different design.
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt too.
To be more Dorito, but I guess it's a manual art translating the design into the thing, and I actually liked it. I would have perhaps liked something more evolution with the glossar rings and stuff, but I liked it.
I actually ended up liking Thalmazane, the actual hangar itself, a lot more in terms of design, especially because it has a literal hole to the center of the world in the bottom of it.
Yeah, I do want to add that Thalmazane originally means wonder, which I think is kind of an interesting
I picked up on that, and I was definitely like, yeah, this is pretty cool.
We have a comment in chat about the background. Cobran, did you want to quickly take a tangent as to the crystals?
Oh yeah, so these are the convocation crystals. I know it's kind of bright, sometimes, but it's designed that way. So it's all the convocation crystals. They each last about 30 seconds to 45 seconds, and then transition. I don't know. It's just a thing I thought would be cool.
They're very pretty.
Is really cool.
I love them. They all have like a good flavor to them too.
Nom nom nom. Convocation
nom,
gummy.
nom.
Exactly.
Just
Exactly.
Jolly Ranchers.
Already
mean,
beat me to it.
It was a mix of Cobran doing the work, and then Ayumi, Fao, and I more or less trying to explain what things could pair well with each member of the convocation.
So yeah, right now we're looking at Metron, who of course was the ichthyologist. So if you look at the top, there's water.
I contributed nothing.
It's true, you didn't.
And,
I mean, he made the air sharks, so.
But I think the best one is Halmarut with the smoke and the leaves. That's just
I think he's
really-
next, actually.
I think that one was the one we just saw.
No.
wait,
We
no,
saw
no.
Metron. I think Halmarut's
There we go.
next.
There we go.
Actually, here we go. This
There
is
we go.
Halmarat.
There we go. Yeah. Of course.
Smoke-filled room with leaves flying around.
So a quick synopsis on this. I had a brief headcanon that because Halmarat is a phytobiologist and his room in Academia Neater is filled with smoke and plants, that he is just a professor of it just completely stoned all the time. And so I called him the dude, and we just stuck with it.
Can we expand
That's
your
just like
headcanon
your
a little
opinion, man.
bit? Yeah, right. Let's expand your headcanon a little bit. In Academia Nighter, he's actually still.
He's always
he is
looking
there.
for
He's
his
like,
rug.
You know,
Yeah.
he's actually there. He's just high as a kite. Like
Oh my lord.
Hades recreated him, but he's just in
He's
there.
always walking around in his robe and sunglasses and looking for his rug, carrying a glass of bourbon.
Yeah.
I'm gonna need bourbon after this.
All right.
Okay.
And
So
now we
s-
can't get rid of it.
So spaceship.
Spaceship and then ITScope.
Yep.
Itoscope. I mean, the Itoscope. I mean, it was a bit of a. If I have to say, I really like the dungeon, but it felt like because Fortunal describes it as this goes into the ethereal sea, but you have to know that in times of the ancients it was called the underworld. I was like,
How'd you know that, bro?
so I knew that, but it was like. So you guys know, and two, are you telling me what I think I'm? And then it was not, in the sense, yes, but it was kind of a bit of. I was expecting things that would occur later, but at that point I didn't know.
I was very like, how much did Heidelin tell you exactly?
Yeah.
Kind of mindset there. I was like, how do you just know that? Come on.
Yeah, it makes you wonder how many secrets were locked behind that tongue charm. I don't know about this dungeon. I enjoyed it a lot. I really did. But I don't know what I was expecting, because when someone says ethereal sea, I don't think open air can breathe giant never-ending cavern. That's kind of how it felt to me running it. Anybody else?
It's just, I mean, technically, since it's another plane of existence, so to speak, I wouldn't want to question it much, especially in Final Fantasy context. I've seen weirder things, but being a realm of crystal, I mean, it's not, from my Final Fantasy 13 experience, it's not exactly Valhalla or the unseen realm, but it's more like traversing the Sea of Chaos itself, going inside, because it's the ethereal sea, of course, and in 13 Trilogy, the Sea of Chaos is where the souls of the dead remain or stay after death until God etc. cleanses them and directs them back into the world of the living. But it was interesting because, of course, this is a different game, but the theme of souls and the sea and water was already present from the launch trailer. But I actually liked it because of insight into other stuff. I don't know. I'm trying to not go into a tangent.
So one thing I had an issue with the Etioscope, and this isn't probably a minor gripe, but they said, going in there, it's possible that your soul, your ether could just like dissipate into the ethereal sea because you're going so deep into it. And I was like, okay, cool. So like, I was expecting some kind of active time maneuver during the boss where like you would have to, click the button or press the button to avoid, discorporeating, which never happened and it never really came up again. And I was just kind of like, that's kind of disappointing that we didn't get anything like that.
I only really chalked it up to being like, oh, Heidelin or something was intervening to prevent us from dissipating, and we didn't
No,
stay
that's
there long enough.
bullshit.
Yeah, I know, but they were like, they probably have the mindset it's like they want to focus on a specific story beat, so they don't want to go like too deep
maybe
into the
it's just the
weeds there.
spirits. Could be the spirits themselves trying to protect us, just as they were.
Yeah.
Some of them intervene. They could be, like, for example, Minfield is a spirit creating the path or strengthening us, like Horsefans,
And
or
speaking of that, I found that a little bit underwhelming myself, in just the sense that it felt like they showed up, but they didn't really stick around to like interact in any way, which would have been nice.
A bit
However
ham-fisted.
briefly.
Yeah, I think it would have been cool, instead of like their weapons or shields showing up, to actually like corporeate a little bit, like a soul. Like when the Scions went to the First, they still had their forms, to do that and fight with you for maybe like 15 to 30 seconds just to see them, and then open the path and then go back into
Like
the
the
sea. I
hero's
thought that would have
gauntlet,
been
you
cool.
mean?
Yeah, exactly.
I agree, but at the same time, perhaps something like that would perhaps break the flow if people get too. I mean, in terms, it's a dungeon. You have to also be efficient with the how much time takes to complete, more or less. So it's kind of, I understand the perspective from this conflict between gameplay and storytelling, which is a delicate equilibrium to maintain.
I just had the idea that if they want, like they've already mentioned they want to expand trust NPC stuff, so maybe if they expanded Adioscope's trusts, they could have it so that you could have Minfilia or Papalymo or even Moonbrita be party members.
That's a
Mhm.
really
And
cool
maybe
idea.
even beside like living Scions, so having like Moonbrita and Urianger fighting together one last time, that'd be pretty crazy. Or think
That
with
would be
Minfilia.
pain.
It would be pain, but it's the best kind of pain.
Well, I mean, technically, if we can bring the Science's avatar into This is Hyperborea, we can make an avatar for everyone. So,
I mean, true.
so that, and then we fight
The hat boss.
I was going to be a bit. Are we fighting Fandaniel for the 4th time now? Because I mean, of course, there's
Yes, technically. Crystal Tower. But that was a clone.
Crystal Tower. That was a clone. There's Zodiac, there's Hermes, and then there's Amon round 2. And
You just call it the hat boss.
and the one thing I did not expect was Isel coming in that fight to help us, and I was like,
I didn't. Well, at first we got Papalymo, right?
Yeah, we got Papalymo at the very beginning. He helped us
Then-
with Ilbear.
Then we got
Moonbrita? then
Then-
Hoshafant,
Harshaphant,
then Minfilia,
Minfilia, yep.
and then Isel.
And yep. So all of them, I mean, I completely appreciated that everyone that had sacrificed themselves for us showed up in some way. But yeah, I agree that if they had shown their corporeal forms in some way just a little bit more, it would have been nicer.
Yeah,
It would have had more of an impact.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Well,
Asahi eats him on.
Yeah.
At least Isel gets the treatment of actually showing up corporeally, even if it's her Shiva form. But
Oh,
Well-
I was happy to see a fight with Ritaten, which was harder than Cape Westwind. Even at level.
Yeah. He looked
Oh,
badass, honestly.
yeah, I mean, the rematch with Livia and Ritaden was great. Actually, good mechanics for both.
That was a good touch, yeah. On the team sacrifice thing, I mean, even having done the Evilise raids, right, the culmination right before the High Seraph, that could have been cool as well. That kind of thing. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
If they had done something like that right at the end.
Hmm.
Eh, you know, I was mostly satisfied.
Yeah, I like the Aetioscope. It's a nice dungeon overall. So I also like environments made of crystal. So
This game's got lots of those.
Yeah.
Rug says, I guess these rematches show that gyms do indeed exist in the afterlife.
Yeah, they both got swole.
Oh
But yeah,
my.
I do have to say, at the end of the Aetioscope, I was just so over Fan Daniel and Amon. I was like, I've already killed you once. I've already gotten to know your past self. Just fucking get off my screen and let me get off of the story, please.
But in the end, he came around more or less. I guess.
No, he was like, is the answer to die? He just came up with the same answer. He was like, is the answer just to die? I guess so. And I'll die.
Sorry. Sorry, I was going to say I meant if you show compassion to him in the dialogues, that's when he more or less comes around. Before Asahi drags him to the
It's not super hell.
the abyss.
Yeah, kind of.
I
It's
agree.
like
It's a forced reboot.
Yeah,
Basically.
it's being reborn as the same soul versus the soul blender is how I see it.
Yeah.
But I like finding the answer together, and he's like, "Why are you still nice to me? Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's like little itty bitty fragments of happiness, which is what Medion discovers later."
Yeah. Yeah, but
Anyway,
I don't because Asahi's words when he says even should be reborn again, you're going to start looking for the answer again and again, and that implies that it's not Hermes' soul going into oblivion or something, anything like that. I think it's just that he's going to forget that part of his past. Though we know that some memories subconsciously endure even if you're reborn. So
I thought the line was slightly different. Arden, sorry.
It makes me wonder what the other translations are, because the English version makes it seem like he is getting dragged down to oblivion, except for the part where Asahi mentions, you'll have to start your search for the answer all over again.
Yeah.
So in Japanese, German, and French, I'm like, okay, are these going to be clear?
The interpretation I took away from it was like even Asa, he doesn't quite know what he's doing. He's just like, I want
that's true.
now, so I'm going to do what I can right now. And if this isn't enough, at least you're going to be rebooted.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Even should you be reborn, you'll have to
yeah,
search
we don't have
anew.
to. It's not that Asahi knows what the fuck he's doing. All he knows is that that Van Daniel made him look bad in Xenos' eyes. That's all he cares about.
I mean, yeah.
But he doesn't even remember. It's really funny. He wasn't there. He wasn't there.
Yeah, he wasn't even there.
He's riding
The
some
only way
Amazon
that
boy.
Xenos could have remembered Asahi was if he remembered basically accidentally saving Asahi
Yeah.
back in freaking Yansha.
Yeah, back
Yeah.
in
Which he
Doma.
didn't, I
He didn't.
guarantee you.
Yeah,
Some scrub
because
in the
that's literally
corner.
the only time that we know of where Asahi and Xenos actually met.
A dagger through my heart.
And yeah, and
Yeah.
we know this because he doesn't even recognize the body. He was like, "What was your name again?" I don't
Yo.
fucking
No,
know who
no.
you
But
are.
the sigh though, the sigh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was your
He
name
I wish
takes
again?
after
Neela
his
was here.
grandfather in that regard.
I wish Neela was here for this.
Same. Oh,
That my heart's greatest desire shall never
to
be
die
fulfilled.
unknown.
Well,
I
Neela's
mean, if
not
Neela
here,
was
so
here, we would spend the next hour ranting about how the fuck does Asahi even have the power to drag Amon into fucking whatever.
but
Well, we-
Neela's
we-
not
we-
here, so we can shit all over Fandaniel.
We were well.
Wow.
We had given Amon a good thrashing, so maybe Asahi took the chance to. Hey, this is my moment.
Yeah, when
My
he's being emo and he's beaten up, maybe we can drag him.
Yeah.
Get dragged, bro.
So yeah, after that's settled, and we go to confront Heidelin.
Who's just sitting there waiting for us to grind through this dungeon. Man, can you help a little bit?
No, it's part of the test.
She's just lazy, all right?
Yes.
12,000 years, but she's just-
sitting and sipping tea and observing shit going down.
yeah,
and-
she's
You
like
dealt-
literally just waiting.
just
yeah,
waiting.
you dealt with the person who asked the question. Now I'm here to get your answer.
Yeah, and the answer is the answer you gave us in Elpis, which pissed me off. And I did not want to go into this. I'm sorry.
Too bad. Too
Well,
late.
So,
unfortunately,
here we go. Okay, so my
Here we go!
issue with Elpis is not that we get Vanna's reason for doing things. It's that Vanna's reason for doing things is that we told her this is how things happened, and she just did that instead of giving us an actual reason behind what she did.
She basically
So like the game, instead of like giving us more insight into Vanna's character, into how she processed information and coming to these conclusions on her own, showing how smart she was, just made it seem like, oh, the Warrior of Light just fed her all this information and she just did that, instead of she did it because of this reason, and these are conclusions she drew on her own based on the information she had.
So
I
you
have
called.
to disagree
So-
a bit. I have to disagree a bit. Core, do you want to go first?
I'm respectfully, I would call that a lazy interpretation. I feel that she did, in fact, have time to think about it and question it, but that the reason she did it was in part because of the time circumstance, but also because she just genuinely believed that what we were doing, what we were fighting for, was worth fighting for too.
I like that you
She
disagree with me.
Like she made that choice consciously. She didn't have to make it, but that's also getting into the whole like, oh, fate versus free choice thing, which we could debate
True.
endlessly as
And
well.
here I am
But
disagreeing with you both.
Go for it. Go for it.
Here
Let's
we
hear their
go.
perspective.
Yep. All right.
I think Venas precisely there's the point of the fact that the Warrior of Light told Vena about the future and more to be precise, their future exemplifies this. Even someone who believes in their people, how much they love them and stuff. It was Vena who insisted the Warrior of Light to tell them something that the Warrior of Light knew that they shouldn't actually be telling you this, but she insisted, and she pressed the Warrior of Light. And because she was a curious soul, of course, she was from Erasmus. She was a scholar. She wanted to know things, and she fell into the same thing with as Hermes did. There's some things you don't want the answer. There's some questions you don't want the answers to, or you shouldn't have the answers to, and that influenced Vena in her choice. sure, she may have thought through it, but in the end, it became a definite defining factor for what she did.
She literally almost said the same thing that Fan Daniel said,
Mhm.
basically in front of all the ancients there.
Yes, yes.
I do want to address Rogue's comments that she did for Asm kind of to because the Unsundered World had run out of sights to see. Kind of, I have this idea, and I know some other people have come up with this as well, where once we see everything that the Sundered World has seen, that we go back to the Unsundered World and become the original Asm. Not the original Asm, but the Convocation Asm during the Sundering. Yeah, I just wanted to address that.
The
But
future past time travel. This is how he knows
Yeah.
everything.
yeah,
Theory.
I just feel like not Asm, that Vana was robbed a little bit of her agency. In that I felt like she already knew that mankind would survive the sundering if she sundered the world, and that not only would they survive, but they would thrive due to the information that she had from us. So I feel like it took a lot of the risk out of her character, which I think detracted a little bit from her character.
At
It
the
does,
same
yeah.
time, I'm curious about because the Word of Light, for example, has only known a seventh time rejoining realm. Did she not expect how rough it would be at the first stage of the Sundering?
I don't think she expected that. But the interesting thing is that without the rejoinings, that mankind would not have been able to
They
do
would-
what they needed to do.
That's right.
Yeah.
The full
Yes,
equation was
and-
required. We needed everyone to
Exactly.
do exactly what they had done.
Which is also why I wholly disagree with Emmett Selk being the only one of the Unsundered that she intentionally left unsundered, because La Habrea set us on our course, and Elidibus set us on the course to produce the alliance that we needed in order to confront the final days. All of which happened before Elpis.
Yeah, I feel like
Yeah,
all
but
of the decisions were made when they couldn't avoid it after all.
Hmm.
When they couldn't avoid the final days after all. The decision was just made, and she's riding out her 12,000.
Yeah. I am glad to see that Heidel and Zodiark are gone. I disagree that Zodiark is dead on all shards, but if that's how they want to go with it, that's fine. But I don't know how the mechanics behind that would work.
I imagine they'll come up with some like retroactive stuff that'll explain it, but ultimately I
Yeah.
just felt like they wanted a clean break to tell their own story now, unburdened by what came before to a larger extent.
I agree. And even though he said, we had enough stuff to go through 8.0 with this story, I feel like they just wanted to start something new at this point. And I can't blame them for that.
I can't blame them for that either. Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
a rushed thing, and it did feel rushed.
It did.
About the Zodiark thing, I do wonder if maybe just the core entity is gone, and therefore the arms that are still sitting on the other shards are simply useless. They're inert,
But
rather than some sort of
no.
magical filtering down through the life
Well,
stream and
I mean,
rejoining.
whatever our interpretation of that, Yoshi P did say what he did, and
Yeah,
whether
true.
or not we agree with it, that does probably mean that they're not going to get into that
I
ever.
highly
You know
doubt.
what
Yeah.
I'd find
If we ever go to
upsetting?
like another moon, there's not going to be like bits of Zodiark sitting there.
No,
waiting
certainly
for us.
not.
You know what I find really upsetting about that answer? It's up to your interpretation.
Yeah.
Just tell us, you coward. I'm kidding, but also true.
It's a
want some
Blizzard
things-
answer.
I want some things to be open to interpretation, and then other things I would rather that they not.
It's a Blizzard Entertainment answer.
They did it backwards.
Oof.
They answered everything they shouldn't have, and left everything open to interpretation that they should not have.
Because they.
If
hold on,
I'm
Meowth.
not
Hold on, Meowth. Because hold on. Because
You have the floor, Yumi.
Yeah. This whole thing with we go forward with learning all about the ancients, learning all about our ancient past, learning all about ourselves and everything, and for us to go through a Q&A and have Yoshi P say, "Oh, you guys really pay attention, don't you? What did you think we do? What
It's
do
a
you
game
think we
about
do?
story.
Well,
The whole thing is about story. Of course we're going to pay attention.
we don't have podcasts. We don't have lore books out there for nothing. You released the lore books. You should know.
You have a thriving role-playing community built on the back of the lore you've made so deep it could fill an entire ocean world.
And then he says, well, this is open to your interpretation. That is something that Blizzard Entertainment and World of Warcraft devs have given the answer before. So
So
it really irked me that he gave that answer.
So I do want to say I'm very excited for March 24th because that's when our timelines video is going to go live on YouTube. And we have a rant from Ayumi included in that about how much Ayumi hates time travel. And it's really good.
An Ayumi annoyance, if you will.
An
We're going to
Ayumi.
go into a Blizzard rant. Sorry.
It's fine. It's fine.
I would say, however, that there's a difference between leaving things to the reader or the player interpretation, which is fair. I personally have no real. I perhaps it's because I'm used to that sort of narrative style. There's some things that not exactly left to interpretation, but some that are in the 13th trilogy. So I that doesn't stop me from lore diving, so I'm fine.
Yeah.
And there's a difference between because one of the if we're going a bit ahead of I'm going a bit ahead of ourselves by with Ultima Thule and the scene in Absolute Horizon, in which there's a bit kind of fourth wall breaking when it says ours is the power to when Hitler says ours is the power to the wisdom to weave the fabric of reality and ours is the power to create. I think that does not only apply to the development team but the players as well and mankind as a whole, that we can make our own story if we want certain points of it at least. So I don't really mind leaving stuff for the player's interpretation. The problem is that and it's understandable because that's always going to happen and you can't please everyone, and is that if you leave things to the player's interpretation, said player's interpretation may collide with other players' interpretation, and there's inevitably going to be clashes between what some people believe is true and some people believe it's not. But I
Fandoms
think
will. Ugh.
yeah, but that's not something that's not something that shouldn't and that won't deter an author from writing their thing. Fandom be fandom. That's the thing. And there's always going to be stupid people out there. That's something we cannot.
Yeah.
Something that we cannot avoid. That's life. Such is life. And in regards to Blizzard Entertainment, I don't think I'm going to give them some credit from when Chris Metzen was there. Because Chris Metzen was the lore master who really cared about the lore of World of Warcraft. Sometimes there's some wonky things, but more or less it stayed consistent. And he tried to give proper answer, and he actually listened to the people who dived into the World of Warcraft lore with proper explanations and actually drew from them. And there are people who made really rude questions that they were later hired by Blizzard to expand on the lore and become scenario writers. But after Chris Metzen left, and you know how things went, this answer of it's up to your interpretation, it's more like we didn't bother to think about this. So there's a difference between we leave that to you because you may build your own universe, which is perfectly possible. As I mean, the role playing community of 14 knows this by far.
We
you
also
can
have to
create.
keep in mind that Yoshi P pulls this a lot when there's the potential for threads to be pulled forward later
Yeah.
on.
I want to say something as
Yeah.
well, if I could have the floor for a moment.
Of course.
Thank you. So basically, I just wanted to state like two things with Yoshida-san and the interview. We have to choose to read condescension into the statement while you guys really paid attention. I know he should know that we're paying attention, but that could just be complimentary. It doesn't have to be thought of as an insult. It certainly can be interpreted that way, but you know, that's a choice. And then the other thing is, sorry about the cough. Maybe he really was just surprised that we're paying this much attention.
Surprised by that. I mean,
Or that the
Because the
interview
Japanese
itself,
community.
they don't. Yeah, we've talked
Yeah.
about this before with the difference in the communities, right? Where the Western fan base seems to really like deep dive analyze like a book, and the Eastern community seems to just enjoy what's presented. And I don't know if that's stereotypical, and it doesn't matter, but apparently that's the situation. So
it's a cultural difference. That's what Moose told us, and I trust Moose
Certainly.
because
I would,
I-
yeah. I would also say that most players, the vast majority of players, aren't deep diving into the lore to connect the threads like a lot of us are.
Right.
And so I would say that the majority of the player base isn't really paying attention to that. I mean, you have people who are just focused on raiding, you have people who are just focused on certain aspects of the game, whereas we're laser focused on the story. So for us, it's like, duh, of course we're paying attention to that. But maybe, you know, as far as as a whole, the vast majority of the community isn't. So
Yep.
it surprised him when that question came up.
Supporting that argument, Cobran, I am certain that like a solid half to 75% of viewers were probably surprised by one or two questions from the lore people, you know, that came up in the live letter.
Yeah, I was
Yes.
surprised by the time travel question.
Right. So I mean, even us there. So there it is.
Yeah, I go into
Delicious time travel.
We had an episode on that. Let's not go into it.
Yeah, no, we have a YouTube video that goes into that. We'll talk about that.
So how about the encounter itself, eh? The trial?
I actually
I ran it on EX last week.
I like lucky you. I enjoy the fact that there's a different tone, but at the same time, at the core, they're basically the same. Zodiac was being. I'm here back. Okay. I think there's I know I lost my place. Someone wants to go ahead?
Yeah, that's fine. Anybody on opinions on the Heidelin trial?
Take privilege is great.
So,
yo, isn't it?
I would say that this definitively proves that Heidelin's a surfer.
What's up, waves?
Oh, jeez. Because
Oh,
she gets just
no.
those sick light waves.
Yes.
Sick
Oh,
waves, bro.
That mechanic was something in EX version, definitely.
I really enjoyed it on normal. I didn't even run it with humans. I did a trust system completion.
Same.
I
And
did
the
too.
trusts, those guys helped, and because they're programmed to go to the right spot usually. I say usually.
Yeah, except for light
Yeah.
waves when they run into the light wave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I ended up with 5 vuln stacks. I didn't die, I don't think. But I was a collector, and I was like, wow, I'm really surprised that I haven't just fallen over yet.
I wiped 3 times on the Mother Crystal, and the second one vexes me as most as me failing my second driving test the second time, because it was so stupid. It was during light waves that you have to follow. Well, I was following the truss into the corner, and I was for some reason there's this little corner that you have to go into the light wave. Then Meowth was a bit too
Slow?
No, not slow. Perhaps I miscalculated, and I put a foot over outside of the arena, and well, you
I
know
would
what happens. You
I
know
would
what
say
happens.
that for me, the pivotal moment of this fight was really having drilled into me what hear, feel, think really means.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. Though she could have been more specific, but all the other times, but fair.
Oh my God, Arden, get out!
I mean,
Am I wrong?
why are those waves yellow? Like,
Oh man. Dare you enter my magical realm, warrior flight?
Oh my God, just all right. I'm done with this conversation. Yeah, we're gonna go on island.
I'll just post a picture of Mommy Heidi.
Oh, man.
Well, I know
This is,
Somo is working on a really awesome model of Heidelin. So
my 2 cents was I liked all her dialogue. I liked all her mechanics, even if Parhelion was annoying. I liked that she drops a mount that is in trans pride colors, and I liked being able to fight her when she was using that sword that she used to sunder the world, metaphorically speaking, and that you can get that sword as well to use yourself.
Like
At least
the
in terms
fact
of
that
mechanics.
they treated Heidelin as a
They gave her a
as
slightly better treatment.
as an obstacle of sorts, because
Yeah.
Zodiac it's a different feeling, because you have to free Zodiac from Van Daniel's control, and then Van Daniel decides to, nope, I'm going to kill him myself through my own claw, and that's the tragedy of Zodiac. Whereas Heidelin, well, it's set up like a trial, but there's no room for failure in that trial. If you can't, if you're defeated by her, you're going to die. It's a duel to the death.
That's right.
Either hers or either yours. Because if you don't have enough strength to best her, then you're going to be stuck here. She's going to kill you, and then mankind's going to go up into the moon and leave town. That's basically what it is.
Although she does
So
say in the battle dialogue to run and never look back.
yes.
So I don't. It's tough.
I appreciate that she does the same animation for basically the Shattered War, but this time it's the Exodus. The attack is called Exodus.
I have a feeling she would have left us at like almost dead and said, "Go to the spaceship."
Yeah,
get
go
the
to the
hell out."
spaceship. It's time for the backup plan.
I'm not so sure, but
I think it's
wonder if
arguable. It's certainly arguable.
I wonder if she would have stuck around with Aetheris, probably. If
yeah,
done that, like she would have gone down with the ship, as it were.
Or lead the ship. That's a
becoming
good question. That's a good. Yeah, this
I mean,
is actually
becoming-
curious.
She may not have even had an option, like since she became the star in a sense when
Yeah.
she supplanted Zodiac, she
Right.
may not have been able to leave.
She would have gone down with Zodiac as well if he had stayed alive.
Tenebrae
So
Queen asks, was the Ragnarok an FF reference? Yes, it was. The Ragnarok is the spaceship in Final Fantasy VIII.
Yes.
So that is the reference. They used
I
that
do
initially
believe-
with ARR and the Ragnarok class Allagan ships, and then they renamed our ship after those ships. But it is an FF8 reference.
I do believe that there's also a hidden layer. We talked the other day about when Neil asked me, or commented on, because the references to Final Fantasy 13 are really subtle. But the fact that the ship is named Ragnarok, it's not. Of course, it's an 8 reference. It's the obvious reference. But then you have to recall that Ragnarok is the end of the world in Norse mythology, and the beast that appears in Final Fantasy 13 as bringer of the end of the world is called Ragnarok, which later is used to. This beast is actually Fang and Vanille transformed to save the world through this beast. So for me, it was like, of course, this is Final Fantasy VIII reference, but it's quite sneaky of them to name a ship after this thing when it's the end of the world. You know that.
I don't know if I'd use the word sneaky. this is where the 8 reference comes from as well, because the cry of the lunar cry, right, and the beasts coming to Earth. This is all very Ragnarok, end of the world, final battle, end of time situation. And 8 was time themed. That was the primary theme of 8 is time.
Time.
Yeah, time compression, dimensional compression, all that is in 8. Enjoy it if you haven't. It's underrated.
The thing is that the 13th trilogy also deals with not exactly time compression per se, but anyways, why I'm talking 13? Let's go back to
No, it's topical. We're talking about Ragnarok. But yeah, I mean, obviously they took from Norse. That's where the original.
No, yeah, but I just don't want to go into a tangent. Please continue.
And she will too.
Keep thinking about the end of the fight when she.
The tangent about 13.
Yeah. Well, you know me, so
I do.
It's been a year.
So have we covered everything about the spaceship?
We're still technically at the trial.
We're still discussing the aftermath, which is when she dissipates. Well, before she dissipates, and she gives. There's something in particular that I was really interested when she enchants the Asm crystal with her magic.
The ability to give form to the formless.
Yeah, but but that's not the thing. That's the words she says, that don't look to the incantation, but something but the something along the lines of the bonds that symbolizes, or something like that. And then she adds that those were the words of the crystal's first holder, and we know that these crystals are passed down from predecessor to successor. So it makes me think, if those words Renata tells the Warrior of Light were the teachings of the first Azim, and that would be really cool.
It is cool. That's how I took it as well, but there's some conflict here, right? Because our previous understanding of the convocation crystals is that they didn't exist until after the Sundering, when the convocation remaining were trying to resurrect the old seats. So we've talked before about how, like, the crystal shouldn't even exist yet in Elpis, things like that. And I'm wondering how this interweaves with this other thought here.
I think there's a bit of confusion there. I think that the crystals themselves perhaps were made in an act of let's imagine that they update.
Let's imagine that the laws of creation are once again.
Right? I've got the quote right here.
Thanks, Ayumi.
Oh, okay.
When the way forward is hidden even from the mind's eye, look not to the invocation, but within yourself.
Okay, yeah.
And
sorry,
yeah, those are the words of the crystals of original bearer.
I butchered that.
So I wanna offer a contrary point of view here. So this particular crystal never belonged to the original Azim, but it did belong to Emmett Selk.
Yeah.
And I want to say that is who they are referring to.
That's what I interpreted it as well, that it was his words, not Azim's.
Do you think Hyderlin would know?
That may have ended up being something that he heard from Azim, but it's left up to our interpretation. And that's an example of something that should be left up to our interpretation.
Yes, exactly.
That's fair. But I think the crystal. I mean, at some point, I hope that we learn more about the original convocation, or the original, those who inspired the convocation, because their titles are inherited, but at some point these names were actually people with these names. At some
Stares
point.
pointedly at the upcoming 24-man raid series.
Fair. But that's why I'm curious, because of course there must have been the first ever first holder of a seat of the convocation, and that would be. And I have my own headcanons for fan fiction reasons, but since I'll tell you one of these, that the the Derplander or Daddy Lander, whatever you want to call him, Meteor if you want. That's the appearance of the first Asm.
Stop.
No, I hate it. My asm is female. Get
Yeah.
out.
I mean, I said fair. You're Asm. I mean the first Asm.
Something like that being so far back in time is to be like just completely open to whatever you want to do with it.
Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah. Anyways.
I hear a Yumi screaming already.
Let's go back
Well,
in
while
time
he's
and meet
screaming-
them.
While he's screaming.
Yeah, wouldn't that be great?
Oh my god.
Let me go
Let's
get my
just say
TARDIS.
no to that.
We've seen the end of the convocation. Now we can see the beginning.
Woo woo.
Oh yeah.
Because to see the end, we must, or no, to begin,
See
we
the
must first see the end. There we
Begin
go.
first, see the
Ah.
end.
Yes, exactly.
First
can
SM equals a
words.
literal monkey.
Listen,
Rug.
all I want
Stop.
is for us to not go back in time. I want us to go forward. Because going back, things get messy. Going forward,
We got to go forward and back.
Yeah,
It's interesting that you mentioned going forward, because one of the things that Vana was very focused on was moving ever forward and never looking back. Kind of like how, she says, run and never look back, to the point, to an extreme where history doesn't matter, just look to the future. But we know that from experience, if you don't know your history, you're condemned to repeat it in the future. So I don't think she was necessarily right in that extreme either, but I know
Agreed.
that was her perspective.
That's why her and Hades work so well as characters, like in mirroring of each other to an extent, because he represents the past, not looking to the future. She represents the future, not looking to the past.
Yeah. But don't tell him that. He's
Yeah.
salty enough at Heidelin.
I
So
will absolutely tell him that.
we get into this. Let's hop into this one scene, and I know we all want to talk about it right before we hop into the spaceship, about summoning and what the Loprits say. Where
You're Cobb, you're missing the scene in the bedroom when the Warrior of Light dreams with certain two talking. Though we only hear one.
you mean the bubble scene?
Yes.
Where Hythlodaeus is talking.
Hades is taking a bubble bath, and
Yep.
Hythlodaeus is
Oh
actually
my.
talking, and Hades is like, I don't care, just fuck off, let me
I
sleep.
mean, my
Yeah,
head
Bro, can I take a nap?
is that Hythlodaeus is just, sitting there talking, and Hades is just very begrudgingly blowing bubbles.
Blah, 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 blah,
Just
blah.
glaring at him
he
the whole
just is
time.
like, I already feel like so much shit having not remembered anything that was important from Elpis for all this time. Like, you don't need to be
I
rubbing
would
it
be
in.
so mad, guys.
He was so mad.
12,000 years.
They told me I told them to remember, and it was me who didn't fucking remember. And he says as much, but still.
This
And
is
then
the
and then
Vana.
comes
coulda told
and then
people.
comes Hythlodaeus. I have to wonder that he gets after Shadowbringers, he gets into the ethereal sea, and then all of it comes to his mind. His first reaction is, "Fuck you, Hermes." Second reaction is, "Oh, so that makes sense now." And then third reaction is, "Oh, so Hythlodaeus is eventually going to be freed from Zodiac, and that's a happy feeling." And then he realized Hythlodaeus is going to be released from Zodiac and come here, and I'm going to have many things to explain. And that's I'm honestly wondering how Hades has not scratched his way out of the underworld, being stuck there with Hythlodaeus making fun of all the things he said he wouldn't do, and he.
I
know it's
would lose my fucking mind.
I know it's a narrative device, but Hades is sitting here blowing bubbles, and Hythlodaeus is speaking English. Like, Hythlodaeus is scary, guys. Real scary.
Oh yes. But yeah, so the summoning thing, go off, Cobb.
So the summoning,
what?
your original comment, the secret sauce was apparently given by La Habrea to temper everybody, because the narrative says that we didn't have to temper people ever. That was never an actual scientific thing. It was just a thing that was in the code that they were using.
Yeah, and it's like, and then it's like, oh, but Zodiac might have tickled, you know? It's
tickled.
I looked at that and I was like, I'm gonna believe Emmett infinitely more than I'm going to believe this little rabbit person. I'm sorry. On this point, I'm gonna believe that they were tempered and that it happens, and that it's more likely happened more than once.
What's really interesting is that we have translated what happens in other languages during this scene, and I think someone else who actually translated it should chime in, but it's kind of different.
Let me scroll up and find it.
If I recall, basically, Living Way says something in the other languages that something like, well, if you were to summon something as big as Zodiac, then yes, there may be some effect. But the implication is that it wouldn't be a mind controlling tempering the way we understand it. It would be kind of different, but you would be affected. that's why I get from the English translation and the other translations. I make a mix of both in context, and I think, well, it's tempering, but it's not tempering as we understand it. It's perhaps it doesn't rob them of free will, perhaps, because but may influence them in a sense. That's the feeling I got from combining both. I don't know if I make any sense.
So I would say it does kind of rob them of free will, because we do see Emmett Silk say that his heart's sole desire is to bring about the rejoining. Now, whether that's to reform Zodiac or restore his original world is up for debate. But I do think that the tempering had the effect of guiding his will towards that. And I think that the fact that he was already predisposed towards that helped a lot. And I don't think that he lost his ability to do what he thought was best in that context. But I do think there was some effect on his will.
Yeah, so he was still able to do certain things of his own volition, like even just making Emerald, like a Phantom Emerald to begin with. Like that was something that wasn't necessarily necessary to his goal, but he wanted to do it for our sake and for the Scions, to so that we would remember and everything as a lesson.
Some of this is also ties into like the fact that Zodiac was no longer extant, like as an entity. As soon as Elidibus hops out of the robot, it's just kind of sitting there, sealed away. I don't know if it could influence his thoughts the way it might have before.
So Arden did find the clip in Japanese. It does say, as you can imagine, if we were to create an entity on the level of Zodiac, you will be pulled in. But on this scale, I don't think it's anything to worry about.
Much different meaning from you might feel a tickle.
Yeah, that's like
a tug, but
a tug or a tickle is like, oh, well, maybe you'll be affected.
This is
whereas
certain.
In that localization, it's like you are going to be tempered. It is going to happen.
I think there's of course, there's levels of tempering. Of course, there's a level of how much it could affect an unsundered soul, which is another different kind of worms. And I personally think that perhaps it's not the tempering predisposed, let's say, Hades to that, but that Hades had already held already those ideals, and even though after the soak in the ethereal sea, which should have cleansed tempering, he still believes the same. So I think, if anything, tempering was perhaps influencing or driving him to continue, when he may have, if not, he may have ended up giving up and going, well, it's never going to be the same, but maybe I can work with this. But perhaps the tempering prevented that in the end, though he was already close to that more often than not. But anyways,
I threw the image into our Discord for everyone else to see too.
Yeah. That was
Go ahead, Cobran.
No, that was my last big thing before we hop on the spaceship and fucking leave.
We get a glorious cutscene of all of our previous primals becoming.
We get a glorious cutscene of Garuda complaining, and it's amazing.
Yeah, she's like, look at what I've been reduced to.
No, see, this is funny because she's actually convinced not to be rude going forward. She's like, "Oh,
Yeah,
guys, they're
Susano
using
gives her a
us."
pep talk. We're being used as glorified spaceship fuel.
Listen, please don't. Well, judge me if you want, but Endwalker created two ships that I didn't think that I would enjoy so much: Sicard and Emanuelen, and Garuda and Susano.
I thought you were gonna say the Ragnarok and the ship we took to get to Charlotte. But okay.
I didn't like these boats. They suck.
Wow.
Wow.
I was really disappointed, actually, that we didn't get Susano and Ravana just chatting it up in that scene.
Yeah.
Everybody should check.
Like, the someone will die of fun vibes would have been so good.
I was going to say everybody should check Rule 34 later for the boat to Charlian and the
Fortunat's teeny tiny toy boats.
Teeny tiny toy boat.
What do you call Susano as a lumberjack?
Oh no.
Susano is so great.
He just shouts, "The trees part for we alone."
The trees part for we
Oh
alone.
my god.
Speaking of, if you have not checked out the Susano breaks into your house ASMR on YouTube, absolutely do that. It is so worth your time.
That sounds incredible.
It's amazing.
How dare you hold this secret until now?
So we hop on the little teeny tiny boat and head off into space, and then we meet Medion.
Should we go back and talk about the end of Catesis, because that's when shit goes south?
I would say later. I would say that's later.
The end of Catesis. The end of Catesis. Well,
I just want to talk about the Ultima Thule.
Yeah, so we're riding this high of getting on the space boat and destroying the laws of physics to get to the literal end of the universe in what, 7 carats or some shit?
Yeah, and literally everything is awesome is playing in the background. And everything is awesome. Yeah, and then suddenly
everything
Twitter
turns
shows up.
off. Everything
Twitter
turns
shows
off.
up.
Twitter,
and then everything actually becomes awesome.
Yeah, so yes, and then Twitter shows up. Everybody starts choking. Medion's like, "Ha ha, y'all sucked." And then Thancred is like the ultimate
drowned
badass.
out by social media.
Yeah, he gets drowned out by social media, takes a swing at it, and just cuts to black. And I have to say, I know there are Thancred enjoyers out there, but I have to say, if that had been the end of Thancred, I think that would have been almost perfect, because it was just very quick, very final, and I think that would have been a good ending to Thancred.
The ultimate.
And then everybody would have turned this as Thancred memes into a permanent, like, this is a picture. This is a picture of the Ultima Thule. This is also a picture of Thancred.
Yeah,
absolutely. He was drowned by social media. Tenebrae says Thancred got canceled.
Oh my god.
He got sent to a farm upstate, and that farm upstate is Ultima Thule.
Oh god.
Thancred became the Dragon Star.
Oh geez.
Also starring This Is Thancred.
And all the oxygen.
So
when the ass so thick it has its own gravitational pull.
Let me get this straight. So defeating Meteon in Ultima Thule is basically the science fighting cancel culture. I like that.
It's funny.
So no, that's good. I was yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say I was late to the party, right? Not just with the Lorelines crew, but with my FC, with some friends, and so everybody's busy anti-spoiling me by telling me how incredible stuff is, and then I get there, and I of course love it, but I'd been hyped up so much that I think it didn't really start hitting as a zone until about 2/3 of the way through. And we'll get to that in due course, but
That's why I don't like people spoiling me in anything
I
when
tried
it
so
comes.
hard.
Don't tell me whether it's good or bad.
I tried so hard. I had battle chat open pretty much whenever I played. Just battle. That's it. Don't talk to me. That whole situation. But still, little drips would come through.
Mm.
But I really enjoyed when we landed, the immediate ambience, the lo-fi, sci-fi was amazing.
Change of Hades and Hythlodaeus narrating together.
Yeah, I loved that. As soon as I got out of the cutscene, I had to take like 10 minutes and completely redo my G-Shade because I didn't want to turn G-Shade off. But my G-Shade was so dark that I literally couldn't see. Like, I ran away from the ship and I got stuck on a rock, but I couldn't tell I was stuck. So I was just running against a rock for a while.
Lo-fi hip-hop beats to despair too.
So I will say, to kind of build off of what Fao was saying, expectation can be a spoiler. So you saying, oh, just wait till you get to this part or wait till you get to that part, that's a spoiler. And we have friends who are very adamant about not having their expectations set, because once you set expectations, then you have a bar to hit, and whether or not something reaches that bar for you personally, it might hit different depending on, now that bar is set. And it might hit different depending on whether or not it hits that bar for you, other than, you just experiencing it in a vacuum for the first time. So I would absolutely say that expectation would be considered a spoiler. So just putting that out there.
Agreed.
Yeah. But I loved when we arrived in Ultima Thule, the ambiance was just very mysterious and weird. I had no idea where we were. So I saw the jets of green. I was looking at the map, and it was just really disorienting going there for the first time, because it's always dark. There is no day in Ultima Thule, and I thought it was just really interesting, how they framed everything, and how the music is kind of distorted. Everything is very, very alien there, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah, for me, Ultima Thule was cool, but a lot of it just wasn't a surprise. Like, I had done the Omega raids recently enough that as soon as I saw the green jets, I was like, oh, I know exactly where I am, at least on this part of the map. And pretty much as soon as Thancred disappeared off the ship, I was like, oh, well, now I know what the magic Hydaelyn put in the Ozum crystal is going to be used for.
Yeah.
So a lot of it just fell flat for me. So when I was doing Ultima Thule, more than anything, I was just freaking out over the quest names, because I was like, why are they playing with the typography of the
yes.
quest names so weird?
Yeah, all of the deaths, quote unquote, they didn't really hit well with me, because we had an empowered crystal, and
Yeah.
knowing the Asm crystal, it's a plot device. So it's like, well, we're just gonna bring them back later. Goodbye,
call
this
those?
person. Goodbye, this person.
MacGuffins?
We'll get to a point where we'll bring them back. So why?
The
get
only
upset over
surprise
that?
of that was the crystal activating, more or less, kind of subconsciously, to call Hades and Hythlodaeus. Otherwise, the science were basically. It was clear. The only surprise was the subconscious activation of that.
Are we sure that was subconscious?
Absolute
See,
not
that
just
wasn't
internal?
a surprise to me either, because we saw a clip of it in the launch trailer for Endwalker. So as soon as we got up to that area and it started showing, the character, clutching the stone, I was like, oh, well, we saw part of this shot in the fucking launch trailer. So then I was like, oh, okay, well, I bet that we're about to summon our two best buddies, and I'm going to be in significant amounts of pain, and that is exactly what happened.
That's exactly what happened for me.
I never saw it coming, and my reaction to that was very pronounced. Yeah.
This is
But-
why I'm always like nervous to personally watch the trailers, because I cling on to like, half-second visuals and, dialogue of 2 lines really hard. So I
Yeah.
can spoil myself so hard. Like the moment Medion opened her mouth in Elpis, I was like, "Oh, hello, creepy child that I heard in the trailer. I'm going to be in for one hell of a ride, aren't
Yeah.
I?"
Hello, my darling,
Yeah.
end of all
Or-
things.
Or that like half a second or whatever of like all the masks in the trailer that looked a lot like the ones from the
Yep.
Hades trial. But were obviously not from the Hades trial because of how they were positioned and used. And I was
Yep.
like, well, that means he's back for sure. Like that's exhibit 12,422.
And then it was not for Hades, but for Hythlodaeus.
And Fandaniel and all the rest.
And
of them.
Fandaniel.
Zodiac, yeah.
But I will say I was happy to see that we did actually go to the Dragon Star, which means I was technically right. We did get to go there, and there was a reason that both the Dragon Star and the Omega Star were in the key art.
Speaking of the key art, I still
Alphatron.
think that and I'm probably going to be proven wrong in 6.1 or 6.3, whatever, but I still think that the key art is not just a metaphorical representation of the ship we use. I think that moon-looking thing looks suspiciously like the orb in the sky of Ultima Thule, and that we're riding something else
You
somewhere
mean
else.
the dead sun?
I think no. If you and I'm probably wrong about this, but the next time you go to Ultima Thule, look for a planet that looks like Cocoon.
Yeah.
You mean the one that's all like broken up and has crystal
Broken up.
coming
It
out
has
of
a
it?
circular hole in it.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's very
It's there.
prominent.
It's blue.
I look at it and I remember how within like a day or two of my character Sarah being created, the FF13 crossover was going on. So Sarah actually got to meet Lightning. So she
Wow.
has no idea that that's Lightning's planet over there.
Dabba D.
But yeah, I keep
Kind of-
imagining that even though the Hydaelyn Zodiac arc is over, that perhaps we will use a different ship, a different arc, to reseed one of the planets with their native kin, maybe the dragons. It's just a harebrained idea I have.
I mean, technically speaking, by the end of the trilogy, Cocoon was long gone, 500 years before. But it could be the residual of Grand Pulse itself, or Nova Chrysalia, if you want, after the ending of Line Return, since it's a world that was destroyed by chaos, which is close enough to Dynamis to make Meow's eyebrows go shoot through the roof.
Kill chaos.
I'm actually salty. You'll forgive me this tangent, but I wasn't interested in Strangers of Paradise at all until they actually started showing things, and it looks oddly cool. Also, the Sunlit Waterscape reference. Yes, please. Anyways,
We're talking about Ultima Thule still. I think my favorite part of it was actually the stuff with the Ia and talking to them about
Yes.
the depth of the universe, and just having that be like this visual of a sorceress cat girl talking to floating head things about the heat death of the universe was just very surreal, and I appreciated it a lot.
It's really
I did as
cool.
well. That was my
mean,
favorite. Well, it's so hard to say because I really enjoyed
Also,
seeing
that
dragons.
the environment the Ia were in very much gave me like Lucas Arts The Dig from like the 90s like vibes of like how it was designed, and their civilization reminded me of that a lot, and that was really cool too. I was not expecting to see that in this game.
If I may, though, in regards to Meteon's ultimatum, which is the dead sun in Ultima Thule, may I say something about that?
We're
Yeah, go
nearing
ahead.
time, but go ahead.
I mean, yeah, exactly.
It's I'll be quick, hopefully. The thing is that the Meteon's ultimatum, as she explains, it's basically a dead sun, which is an egg that will never hatch. She's not only being final days, sending the final days to other stars. She's also taking the souls of those she's basically killed into that thing, because as she says, true salvation lies not in death but in not being born, because if you're going to live again, then what's the point? And that's actually that's something that really gave me the Lightning Returns vibes, because it's not exactly that someone did this deliberately. It was a side effect of chaos flooding the timeline and the historical cracks and the physical world. But one of the main problems with Nova Chrysalia is that while no one's been aging for 500 years, there's also not been any children born, because there's no one to take care of the cycle, to oversee the cycle of death and rebirth. So the moment Meteon said that her aim was to make people not be born, I was like, oh my fuck. So I was like, yeah, I didn't need more dynamism equals chaos vibes right now.
I think that we should have an intentionally off-topic stream in the coming weeks, maybe a different day, because Meowth, I'd like to engage your Final Fantasy XIII mind against my
Oh, God.
Xenosaga mind and see where we can meet, because in a way they have similar lessons, but utterly different takes, and it's
I
really
have
cool.
to say that my only knowledge, and it's just from reading the plot, my only knowledge of the Shino saga is Shinogears.
So Xenosaga, I explained this in the Discord a couple days ago, and I won't take a long tangent, but basically, Xenogears was this same team who did Xenosaga and Xenoblade, and when they were still employed by Square Enix, and the title is incredible. It's a very good game, highly recommend, except to note that the last chapter is basically all exposition and 2 or 3 dungeons, and it's very interesting how the game quality decreases immensely as they do a huge lore dump, and my only thought is they ran out of funding. So when they jumped companies and did Xenosaga, it's a different story, different world, but all of the themes are the same. And it's really interesting how they've reinterpreted their story like through multiple titles. They're always telling the same thing, but it's always different enough that you can recognize where it came from, but also appreciate it as a completely new game. It's really interesting in that way. But I'll leave it there.
In some cases, the themes are so blatant and similar that it feels like they're part of the same series.
It might even be like just a bunch of alt universes. It's really like that, like where it's so close, but so that's my soapbox, which I spammed all over chat the other day.
I mean, fair, because if you'll allow me to go into 13 tangents, you should be allowed to go into Xenosaga, Xenogears, Xenoblade tangents. So
play all the games. That's the lesson here. All the games.
That's fair.
I should play 13 again. Truly.
One day I will go on a Pokemon tangent.
So I guess we'll leave it there, right?
Yeah. Next week will be, what's our episode next week?
Yeah, so next week is episode 50. It is our 50th episode, which is a milestone. It is also roughly our 1-year anniversary, also a milestone. Thank you for journeying this far with us. We actually have a couple of guest spots, and Cobran's been working on gathering some people who've been on the cast before. It will be completely off topic, and it'll be a lot of fun. Please be here. Cobran, if you want to go into some details about who will be likely to come, not guaranteed, but
no, I know people who are guaranteed to come.
Ooh.
I don't have the likely list, but I want to leave it a surprise. We'll be announcing it later in the week. But basically, we're going to be doing a greatest hits of all of our guest spots that we've had on.
I'm so excited. You have no idea. It's been a while since we've talked to them, and I had hoped to develop friendships with everyone. So it's just nice to have you back.
Your eyes.
I'm looking forward to seeing people I didn't get to see when I was still in the hospital that way back.
Oh.
Honestly.
Yes, Mouth.
Those who are guaranteed, remember, if you may recall, remind them, stupid vocabulary. You may remind them to, if they want me to change their avatar, please send me the shots.
Okay. I don't think they've changed, but I will let them know.
Okay.
We'll do all the admin talk offline. But everyone,
Yes.
thank you so much for coming to episode 49. I had a blast as always, and I hope to see everyone again next week. So
Yes,
bring your
there will
friends,
be
bring
more
your
Ultima
family.
Thule.
Yes, there will be more Ultima Thule.
Yeah, in two
Yeah.
sessions, we'll be back to lore. Probably 51 will start Ultima Thule again, and probably 52
Yeah.
will finish the MSQ. So thank you all for coming with us on this journey.
Yes, thank you.
All right,
You.
I guess I'll prep a raid,
Yes.
and we'll close
And
out the stream.
also, please poke me. Please poke me a bit earlier if needed, because right now I don't know which time is for you.
Good old time.
It's
skipping
3:41 p.m.
savings.
East Coast right now,
Yeah,
Okay.
it is.
if that helps for reference. All right.
I'll think on that later.
Oh my god. Rogue. Screw speculating 14 lore. Time to start speculating lore lines. Yes.
Oh, jeez.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Build the hype.
Get hype.
Anyway, you all take care. I'll close out the stream here, and we'll see you all next week.
Take care, everyone.
Take care.